This month, for our talk, we are featuring Dr. Maria Santana, who's the director of Women's and Gender Studies program at UCF. She's also an associate professor of games and interactive media. She's also a UCF fellow at the Center for Global Economic and Environmental Opportunity. She's also the UCF partner at the Puerto Rico Research Hub and a UCF fellow at the Center for the Study of Human Trafficking and Modern Slavery, which is impressive in itself. After working for the last decade with farm workers in Apopka and volunteering with progressive organizations, Dr. Santana is going to be giving us a synopsis of some of the challenges and assets of living as a feminist and a Latina here in Florida. So please welcome Dr. Santana.
Wow, microphone, yay. Well, thank you for having me. I love this humanist bubble. I mean, you were saying all those things, and I've done many of those as well. Thank you for being here and for believing that we can be humans and as that, join each other without so many divisions. I don't like PowerPoint, so I did not bring you a PowerPoint. I brought you myself. I'm a storyteller, so I will stop sometimes and tell you a little story. I hope you don't get too bored, and I hope I don't get out of the camera view.
You are fine.
A woman I heard recently said that happiness comes from sharing. And I'm happy to share some thoughts with you today. Thank you for the invitation. I'm going to start with a transparency exercise. A transparency exercise means that I'll tell you something that just by looking at me you don't know about me. And if at any time any of you feel compelled, you can get up and do a transparency exercise as well. It's kind of liberating. The reason I do this is so you need to know a little bit of who's in front of you without you having to read all my bio. Although, you know, I do many eclectic things. That's why you heard all those things before. So let's do it. I'm a person with 2 sisters, 3 ex-husbands, and 6 names. I'm also an avid gardener, a photographer, and a world traveler. You can add that by looking at me, I'm also short. But like my students call me a powerhouse. They say once she opens the mouth, you feel like she's really tall. My story starts in Santiago de Cuba about 57 years ago. I'm the youngest of 3 daughters. Both my mom and dad were college professors, like I am, and they had a good life. In 1962, I came in with the missile crisis. And that's why maybe my mom says that I'm fired up. Because of the missiles. By 1965, my family had left Cuba and we lived in Mexico, and then we settled in Puerto Rico. So I am a Cuban, Rican American. That's who I am. I have an equal craving for grits, plantains, and pork chops. My identity was built as a member of the majority. And it was not until I came to the U.S. for my master's that somebody called me a minority. And I basically had to look back, looking for the minority person, because I didn't know that I had that new label. Now I have received many labels besides that one. Growing up in Puerto Rico as a Cuban was not always a delight. Many of my friends' parents reminded me, oh, but you were not born here. So that's something that reminds me when I came to the United States, because people say, oh, but you were not born here. So that has carried me along many of my years of growing up, the feeling of where do I belong? So when I finally went back to Cuba about 4 years ago with the League of Women Voters, by the way, good trip. I was so excited. I'm thinking, here, people are going to say, yes, she is one of ours. No. Everywhere I went, I said, I'm from Santiago, expecting, you know, balloons, something, noise, confetti. And people said, no way, you're not from Santiago, you're way too white. And I'm going like, I never win. I would never win. So I come to you with who I am, which is 3 in 1. I am Cuban by birth, Puerto Rican by heart, and American by decision. Because I tell my children who were born in Orlando, I said, listen, I decided to be a U.S. citizen. You were just born here. I made a conscious effort to be a naturalized citizen. I'm very, very proud of this country. So it's that threesome that it's who I am. So I'm just going to accept that, enjoy that, and live my life. Because you never can please everybody, right? So many people in my life have said, well, you're not too Hispanic or you are too Latina. So, okay, make up your mind. Am I too much or too little? So my interest in Puerto Rico was also very academic. My dissertation was in both Spanish and English, which caused an uproar. And I study ethnic nationalism, which is a very political term. It's a nation within a nation. So I study 3 groups in the world. One is in Quebec, one is in the Basque region of Spain, and the other one is the independence movement in Puerto Rico. So I study them and how the press covered them and how people actually felt like living inside of a nation, although they were not independent from the nation itself. So I was highly political at one point in my life, and I have a Russian studies minor in my PhD, as well as a literature minor. So, you gotta balance things around a little bit. Otherwise, it's way too serious. I just finished, last year, I finished a Fulbright to Russia, and I was there for a month. And there's nothing like studying something in a book. This is my 4th time in Russia, but for a month, it's different this time. I was actually carrying gallons of water like the locals, and taking the subway and changing my shoes and doing very much what the locals were doing. And after a month, I almost kissed the ground of the USA. It's a very controlled environment, very, very controlled. So after a while, you start feeling this pressure. But regardless, it's very interesting, and I study women and girls around the world. So I did interviews with women that either were children or had relatives that survived the Patriotic War, which is the area in the Second World War where Russians fought the Germans in their land. So women were kicked ass. They protected St. Petersburg and Moscow. They were amazing. So I was able to interview 2 elderlies that were children at the time and could relate the gender roles of their moms and sisters during the war, during the Patriotic War. Very, very interesting. So that's what I do around the world. I talk to women. I usually ask them, what is womanhood to you? What does it mean to be a woman? And 2 of the words that come across most often, one of them is, I sacrifice. And the second one is like, I solve problems. None of them say I live a happy life. I've never heard that. Please, can somebody that I interview here tell me that they live a happy life? Yay! Because that's really hard to take from a woman in India to a woman in Brazil to go to Portugal, go to Russia. I'm now, next week I'm in Amsterdam. Let's see what the woman says there, because so far it's been really dramatic and really similar, a little scary, if you ask me. So at the age of 20, I left Puerto Rico and I came to the U.S. I came to Philadelphia to study, and I had a very, very thick accent. This is nothing. This is super Anglo right now. And of course, I was extremely shy. I don't know what happened. But I would go into stores, you have to ask for things, and I needed to get gloves because I was freezing. And the woman is like, may I help you? So I was so shy that I would just say but that was worse because people would say, what? What is it that you need? So I decided that speaking up was worth it. And that no matter how I sounded, it was better than to be shouted at, because they couldn't understand me. So learned that lesson very clearly and very quickly. And Philadelphia offered me a really progressive environment, which I really, really love. And unfortunately, I finished a PhD and there was no jobs available. So I left the city and came to Florida. It was the first time ever. By the way, I'm not from Miami. I was never in Disney before my interview. And of course, you know, when you land and you take the 417, you don't see anything. So I'm going like, so where's like all the Cubans and all the Puerto Ricans? I thought they would be on parade as I go down 417. Didn't see anything. Didn't see any trees. I mean, just trees, no housing. No. So they took me to right here in Park Avenue, the restaurant. What's it called? Park Garden?
Park Plaza.
Park Plaza. Nice, huh?
Closed now.
I know. But it wasn't. So that was very nice considering my colleagues went to Applebee's for their job interview. So they parade me all this neighborhood, all these beautiful trees. So I was like mesmerized. I'm like, oh my God, it's like Gone with the Wind, but in Florida or in Orlando. I wasn't sure. But so I came and I settled in Florida. And in Florida, I also found very progressive people to work with, and I'm really an activist. I've been an activist since before I could tell you that I was an activist. And I have always been a feminist before anybody gave me that title. Because I believe in humans, and I love women, so what's not right about supporting women? And really, it has nothing to do with men. People are always so confused about that. It's like, well, yeah, men are fine, they're over here, but I am over here, and I also want to support women, and we are phenomenal. I think so, I truly think so. We are phenomenal. So, I belong to many organizations in town, the American Association of University Women, AEW, Winter Park, and Orlando, and the League of Women Voters of Orlando. I help with Second Harvest, Equality Florida, the Center. And when I say I say we, because I always bring my students with me. It's almost like I create a path and you know who's going to follow me. And they are my students because they believe in certain things that I believe as well. And also because they are the new blood. I tell them I'm super dead. This is your life now. I'm just having fun now, but I already did, but you need to see the changes that you need to create. And just the other day, I was talking to a class of another professor, and they were like, oh, I feel so helpless, I don't know, nobody's gonna hire me. And I said, shut up. In 5 years, you're gonna be the manager. You're gonna hire, you're gonna decide why can't you work from home? And what is this nonsense about having to come back to work after a baby? I mean, you will make decisions. Or maybe not having all these Christmas decorations in the office. You will say what needs to be done. Don't feel powerless because you have a power that none of us in the room have. You are the youth. You have the freshness that we don't have. And for that, cash in. Cash in for as long as you can. When they stop calling you cute, you know it's over. I always complain about that. Oh, Maria's so cute. And then when they stop saying that, and we're like, come back. Come back. So one of the things that I believe in is service learning. And service learning, service to me has always been very much part of my fiber. I don't know if it's the family that I grew up with, where my parents always say they need help. We need to, get it together and help them. And in ways that you could say they were minor or ways that were major. So I have a guest room in my house, and whoever is new in town and doesn't have an apartment yet, they know they can stay with me, or whoever has to leave a situation that at home is not safe, they know that they can come with me, and I don't have to entertain them. They have a key, It's not like they're putting me out. It's like I'm putting them in because they need help. And I would like to think that if I'm ever in that situation, somebody would open their guest room for me. So service, people always say, oh, I learned a term about a conference ago called service teacher. I guess I'm that. I learned a long time ago that being a professor means that you can have rigor but you can also have heart. Like they are not disputing among each other. That the reason that we are an educator is because we want to facilitate learning, not put people down or ridicule them or be conceited about ourselves, but to share and guide so that they can also learn. So yes, in that sense, I do service. I do service in many ways. You heard about the Farm Workers Association of Florida. The reason I work with them, there's 7 different organizations in Apopka, is because they're non-religious and they help anyone. They help one individual, they help one child, they help a whole family, and they don't have to evangelize anyone or wait until it's a whole family to help them. So that's also very exciting for me because I was able to go right in and kind of bring my students into this kind of community that they totally ignore. They say, well, it's 30 minutes away from UCF, and I say, yeah, it's 30 minutes away and we don't even know anything about them. And those people are your community. Those people are going to be in your life. Don't think that they're not. Maybe your children will marry them. You don't know. You don't know these things. They are 30 minutes away and they are paying the same prices we pay with very, very minimum wage. So I went to see them and I said, what can I do to help you? And they said, well, long time ago we did a conference for women. And I said, all right, let's do it. So of course they don't know me, but I do things. So the next thing they know, I come back and they were like, oh, she's back. The first time when they met me, their arms were crossed. They were all like sitting down, looking at me, like, So I switched into Spanish thinking, well, maybe the Spanish, right? They were still, their arms were crossed, and I studied communication, so I knew there was something going on. So the second time I came around, they opened a little bit more. The third time they were fine. The fourth time they invited me for coffee and Mexican donuts, and I said, all right, I'm in. But after 11 years of friendship, I asked them back why they were so close when I approached them. And they said, well, because we have been hurt and we have been used, and a lot of researchers come in, do the focus groups, this and that, write their papers or their books, and they never come back, they never share with us, they never help us. And we feel used. And I say, oh, I know about that, so I get it. But I said, no, for me it's for life. So you're stuck with me. I'm now one of you. So 11 years later, we do a conference every spring. And I get my students involved in this. So how do I get them involved? I teach a class called Women, Race, and Struggle. So if you're in my class and you're a woman, well, congratulations. If you are African American, congratulations. So we're going to talk a lot about that. Or Latino, yes. If you are not a woman or of any race that you want to share with us, well, you have struggles, don't you? You fit in. So everybody fits in that class. But we take the Farm Workers Association and we work with them the whole semester. We visit them and we do a toxic tour on a Saturday. And we talk about pesticides in the land and how it's affected the health of all those farm workers till today, when many of them have died. And they're still alive, but they have lupus, they have issues with their kidneys, and they have problems with now their grandchildren. Most of these pesticides are organic, so they stay in your body even though you're not a farmer anymore. So you think, oh, I've progressed, I don't have to work in the farm anymore, but I still have these chemicals inside of me. So many of the women that are in childbearing age cannot conceive and they want to. Or they conceive after a lot of work and they have miscarriages. So it really messes up your reproduction. So seeing that place and looking at the toxic tour and talking to farm workers, my students are now kind of living the reading that they have done. So instead of just reading and me quizzing them, they're reading and then they're meeting people that actually have gone through this. So it's very powerful and they really enjoy that. So after the toxic tour, we read a book called Fed Up, which is the story of the farm workers in Apopka. And we have the author come to our class and they do part of the quill. The Farm Workers Association have a memory quill where they have created squares depicting different people in their life that have perished and they miss. So if this person was a good baker, then she's kind of making something in the oven. And it's made very in a simple way. They're not quilters, but it's made by hand and by hand stitching. And each one has a different vignette or different time or different person. So my students also help create one, not so much about my Aunt Elsa, but about what they feel about learning all this, how this is changing them. So that was another great exercise. So that semester, if you think about it, they were taking a college class and they were going through many different ideas and thoughts and people, but at the same time, they were learning about something and somewhere here. So they don't have to think, I'm gonna do this in Ethiopia. No, you're gonna do it up Samaran Road, you know, all the way after Wakaiva, and you get there. And the culmination of the semester is the woman-to-woman conference. And this is something that I do with them because I want to do it. I don't get anything. It's just a great satisfaction to organize a conference for women that want to learn. So they learn whatever topic they require, I will provide. I find experts, and everybody goes that day for free. So my students help promote, and also we give them a tote bag full of hygiene products. Those hygiene products are gonna help that family to, you know, not have to spend so much money. So this is the whole experience of 6 months, and then after that, you know, it really helps the person to start feeling human again and start feeling like I can accomplish something even if it's small. And understanding that the word community has many, many, many different definitions. And perhaps they had nothing in common before, but now they're feeling that they share something with those farm workers. I have never farmed. I have now, you know, more expertise after 11 years, but but I went in and I'm like, urban, city girl, nothing here, nothing happening, maybe flowers. So I learned to compost. I were eager recycling fans in my house, and all those things came because I believe that when somebody touches your life, you touch their lives as well. So it has been an exchange between them and us. And my children have grown going to a PubCon and making this conference every year. So every spring except this spring, for the first time in 11 years, I'm not going to be here because I'm on sabbatical. I'm going to be in Spain, and I'm going to be working with the Center for the Study of Gender in Alicante. And the Spanish women have incredible difficulties with domestic violence. The Spanish woman in general is a very strong individual, very decisive, but at the same time, it's a very interesting issue how in a relationship, in a partnership, domestic violence occurs. And it's still considered very much a private matter, so that the law and even the neighbors or even other family members do not want to intervene. So they have a campaign going on, and this is the 3rd year for them, that is called Don't Hit. And it's just that, the words don't hit, which is good because then you're thinking about abuse for the elderly as well as children and as well as your partner. But they see gender they're ahead in many ways, and in others I feel that they're still getting there. So I'm looking forward to working with the graduate students, to learning from them, but unfortunately I won't be in Apopka, and my farm worker friends are upset. And I say, well, I don't know, there's planes that come back and forth, maybe. Maybe I can come back for that. But in the meantime, I'll be working on that. I usually tell my students, I say, oh, you teach so many different things, how can you do it? And I say, well, it's very important never to become an imposter, to actually live your truth, and in a capacity that you can. So if you don't know something or are not sure completely, be frank and be honest and say, well, please explain to me because I'm not sure and I don't understand. So I'm doing now a training for the farm worker youth that is LGBTQ, because this is a very patriarchal group of people. It's very difficult for them to come out or even to acknowledge who they are or even talk to their relatives about it. So we're doing a series of workshops and icebreakers, because I said it's so delicate, the balance right now, that we can't go full force. We can't go in that room and and go full force with any of them. So we have to go into icebreakers and kind of guiding them in baby steps. So we're in the third level, and in the third level, we have had now people crying and wanting to hug and wanting to learn and wanting to ask. The first two levels, their bodies were there, but they were not really paying much attention because it's so strong. It's such a religious connotation that you have to fight against. That for them, it's almost like impossible to break that barrier. And that's what we have been trying to do with them, to kind of listen and make them understand that these children are their children and that they need their love and they deserve their love. So that's, yeah, a little bit different. So I tell my students, don't try to impress me when you write things or when you do essay exams. Just be who you are. Never be an imposter, because in the long run, truth will prevail and people will know. So you might as well know it now. So that's why I told you that I was Cuban Rican American. Because you know that I love food just by saying that. Sounds like delicious, right? Cuban Rican. But I cannot say that I am more Cuban than Puerto Rican because it's not true. I really grew up all my life in Puerto Rico. But it is that Cuban side of me that, believe it or not, being raised Cuban is different from being raised Puerto Rican. It's not the same thing. I know it sounds very similar to somebody from the outside, but it's not the same. But I embrace both, and I feel that they both have brought me to where I am without forgetting that I'm an American. And when I travel around the world, that's my passport. That's my presence. And those are the questions that I need to answer. So, of course, when Trump won, the next day I had a conference already established and organized in Canada, in Quebec. So I'm in Quebec, looking around, and suddenly there's like the camera people there, the TV people interviewing me, and I'm like, this is surreal. Because they thought that I was an American. I've left the country. Because their website had crashed on that morning with everybody asking, how do I become a Canadian citizen? And I am like, I'm really honored that you think that, but I'm here because I happen to be in a conference, women's studies conference, but I'm happy to be here, something already planned. But they were going around talking to people that sounded American and look American. Why were they in Quebec at that time? So these are the things that you bring that you don't know that you bring with your persona. So having to be truthful has also brought me conflict, because a lot of people don't want to hear a message. They don't want to hear that I'm a feminist. They don't want to hear that I believe in equal pay. They don't want to hear that I fight oppression. They don't want to hear that violence is not okay. So they feel at sometimes that, who is this woman and why is she talking to me? Well, I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to all of you, because from something bad comes something good. And when we feel oppression, the good part of that is that we know we don't want it, and we fight against it. So yes, I have been ridiculed, insulted, you name it. It's okay. Because those things are not me. Those things were done to me, but they don't define me. They're separate from me. So people will say, oh my God, you have an accent. I say, you know what that means? That I speak another language. It's okay. It's okay. Oh, you're dark. Well, enjoy. Be very jealous of my tan, and especially in the summertime. Just enjoy. Your hair, is it curly naturally? And I'm going like, touch it. No problem with that. So things that other people find really intimidating and insulting, I kind of welcome it. I say, well, who was your first feminist? And I always say my father. And of course they go, oh my God, what a man. I say yes, because in my society, for my father to be a feminist, it meant that everybody was a feminist. Because it's a patriarchal society. It's a society where women take their names, husbands' names, and I never did. Mr. Santana is my dead dad. Imagine, I would have now 3 names. And that's not why I have 6 names. I have 6 names because the Latina culture takes both last names from your family and both last names from your grandparents. So you honor everybody that comes to your life. So when I marry, you're not my sister-in-law, you're my sister now. And the in-law thing doesn't really apply. It's almost like now we are part of one another. So that's why all the different names. Plus I have like 3 first names, because royalty. But when my kids were little, they would play, oh, tell your mom to tell her names real quickly and see if we can say it all again. So I would play with the children. But it's so sad because for my 2 children, my son, who was totally bilingual, when 3rd grade came, he stopped speaking Spanish, and only English. And I remember I keep saying, what's going on? And his friends will make fun of him, and they will make fun of me to him. Like, oh, I don't understand your mom. Why is she talking to you in something? I can't say what she's saying. And he would say, well, she's talking to me in Spanish. We are in our home. So, long story short, he's 21 now, and he's trying to recapture his Cuban, Rican roots, because he understands now that he really wants to get to know more of that part of him. While my daughter, who's younger, immediately always embraced Spanish. And she is a white Latina, so she gets the other side. Like people speak to her in English when in reality she wants to speak in Spanish. So it's complicated, right? So she gets really frustrated. I said, honey, just continue speaking whatever you want. If it's Spanish, just continue speaking Spanish and people will catch on. Even though Latinos come in all colors, usually people are not aware how white somebody can be as a Latina. So I said to her, well, I will take you to Spain. So when she was 10, we went to Spain, and we went to the northern part of Spain. And I said, do you look around? And she goes, Mom, the people are blonde and they're white. And I'm going, see? And then we're going to go to southern Spain, where everybody's going to think your mom is from there, because he has the wavy hair and the darker skin. And these are still Spaniards. They have different looks. So she's learned her way, and so has he. But it is never perfect, right? So those of you that have come from multicultural backgrounds, you know that it's a tug of war, give and take. A little bit here, a little bit there. And sometimes you are not feeling completely satisfied with what other people think about you. So when I say to you that happiness is sharing, I wanted to also tell you that it is difficult to ignore me because I'm very strong-willed. So I will raise my hand, or I would stand up, or I will leave the room. So I always make a statement whenever something is happening that I don't agree with, or that I have something to say. And this has happened at UCF. It has happened in many different settings where I don't really want to stay in this location when something is insulting or oppressive. So my students don't understand that, and I say, well, if I ever do something in class that frightens you, that triggers you, that makes you feel that you're not safe, you have all the right in the world to get up and leave my class. It's your right as a human being. So they find it interesting. So of course we had an interesting meeting about a year ago at UCF, and people were just sitting there. And as a union member, I said, no, I am not going to sit here, because if I sit here, it means that I'm listening and that I'm allowing that message to come. So I got up and I left. As I'm leaving, I'm getting all emotional, and I see 3 or 4 people behind me walking. And it is that moment where you feel, should I do this? Should I not do this? That really defines who you are. I always tell my students, don't feel that you're going to be ethical the day that you put the little hat and you're going to graduate. You have to be ethical today, whatever job you're doing. So if you're ethical, you understand that some things feel wrong, and they feel wrong because they are. So do something about it. Don't allow that to be part of your existence. So being a feminist and being a Latina, some people think that it is contradictory, because Latin culture is traditional, because Latin culture supports the head of the household mentality. And by that, I don't mean our taxes. I mean that men are the head of the house. The men are the ones who make decisions. That we change our name. That until recently, men will name the children and inscribe them in the with the judge, not the woman. The woman couldn't even pick a name. So when I teach first and second wave of feminism, and I teach about the women's movement in this country, I'm always in the back of my head going, that's not what happened in Chile. That's not what happened in Argentina. That is not what happened in Mexico. But I'm teaching them what happened in this country, which is still obviously the fight continues. We're not there yet by far. But in other ways, other countries were 20, 30 years behind. So just the fact of legal divorce is a new word in many of Latin American countries. Because separation was okay, but you lived 20 years separated. Which sounds to me like you were divorced, right? But you were separated, and you could not make decisions while you were separated, correct? So you couldn't sell property, which probably you didn't own, or you had to sell with the signature of somebody else. So this oppression is worldwide. It's not just in our country. Our country is way ahead of the game, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So my students say, why not think about humanity, personhood? Why use the word feminist? And I say to them, and I say to you, I will use those terms when women are completely free and when women have reached their capacity in this country. And then we don't have to say feminist. But because we're not there, I'm still going to love women and love girls. We have a mentoring program that we run with 7th grade girls that want to study STEM. So they come to UCF once a week at night, and they have a mentor who is a UCF woman who is studying who is in STEM. And that mentoring program has received national grants from AUW National. And we consider that the girls have the power to generate agency. It's just that we never ask them because they're just girls. Well, girls know. They know what they want. They know how to do things. So this program allows them to grow as leaders and also to learn about science and math without the voice. Starting at the age of 5, the girls in this country want to be under compliance, want to greet and favor others. 5. Not to favor themselves, but others. So between the ages of 7 and 12, girls in this country and in most developed nations suffer from identity crisis. And what does that mean? It means that they are not sure who they are. They don't like what they look like. They don't understand the changes that are going in their bodies. They are frightful to express any kind of competitive self. I mean, I can go on and on, but the research is very, very scary because they want to favor others, they want to look sexy, or they feel like they are less. And when it comes to math and technology, if you get that message in 3rd grade, it just never leaves your mind. It never leaves your mind. How many of you were told you're not good at math? Nobody? Did we believe that? How does that shape you? Did you think, I'm going to be a mathematician now? So you basically went another word, something else, but not math. 3rd grade. 3rd grade. So imagine if I were to tell you in 3rd grade, yes, you can do this. Let's work together. You can learn this. Instead of, never mind. My daughter was in the gifted program, which I have very mixed feelings about, but that's another workshop. In Seminole County, which I have mixed feelings about, which is yet another workshop. But she was leaving during class for math to go to her gifted class. So the teacher is supposed to tell you what you missed, right? Common courtesy. Well, she will come back and the teacher will be finishing an assignment and she would say, oh, but you know, what page is that on? I don't know. Oh, you're gifted.
Yeah.
You should know everything.
What?
But she sent out one time too many. So the feminist Cuban went over there and had a big problem with this 4th grade teacher because she was, first of all, picking my daughter in front of everybody else. Second of all, humiliating her for something that she has not done wrong. And third of all, she wasn't doing her job, which is basically tell her what she missed. She's not telling you to give her the right answer, just tell her. So that was awful. That was awful. I almost pulled her out of the program because I said, what? So she missed 4th grade math. She was kind of like in limbo. So when he came to 5th grade, my daughter started saying, I'm not good at math. I can't do this. And I'm like, who told you that? Let's unpack this right now. You have an incredible brain. You know that we are the only animals that use our brain like we do. We can speak and think and write. We can figure this out. And you can. So now she's on her way to be a lawyer. And never afraid of math. But it was very hard for her to reject her teacher. A fellow woman, a fellow Cuban. Yeah, just bring it in. Bring everything in. She had to reject that woman, and it was really hurtful because, as you know, children at that age adore their teachers. They love them. They spend with them more time than with me. But in that situation, I had to stand up. And stand up the way that a parent does, which is, I want to talk to the principal, I want the teacher there, I want the counselor, I want my ex-husband, I want everybody there. Well, because you don't want to sound you're crazy. You want to sound factual. So, fortunately, I even had a parent of another child that came and talked because she heard the teacher say that. That people that were in the gifted program didn't need any help whatsoever. So, in every facet that I have encountered, you encounter me the way I am, just forward and front. So if I'm going to say something about it, I'm going to tell you first what's happened between us. But in reality, what that message gave my children was that my son was mortified that I would test him to be in the gifted program because I would show up in school. You know how much they hate that? Mom, please don't come. Or that I will ask for the principal. Oh my gosh. So in high school, he decided to drop a class too late, like a day late. And they gave him a hard time, and immediately he said, please don't come. Please. It's okay. Please, Mom, don't come. So anyway, the Cuban feminist didn't go that day. I left him alone. In reality, what I do for a living is that I teach at a university. But what I really do for a living is that I want to try to make my world better in any way that I can. Because I honestly believe that we're here to love one another, not to fight with each other. So when I tell my students, when you're homophobic, when you have hate in your heart, all that is feeding badly your body. It's like eating fatty foods, right? Eventually you're going to clog. Something's going to happen to your body. So in that sense, my students say, oh, I'm not sexist. And I said, okay, well, let's revisit that comment and put a man in it and tell me what you think. Oh, that's ridiculous. And I'm going like, it is. You said it. But it's sexist because you're giving that definition different for men than you are for women. That is not equality. So my classes are based on service learning, which means that they have to work 15 hours outside of my classroom in a project that deals with the theory that we're working in the class. So if we're working on gender, they need to actually work on organizations that fight for gender equality and do activities or something that has to do with gender. And in that sense, it helps them to understand what gender is. Because gender is based on people, it's not plants. It's just human beings, attractive, ugly, fat, young. They're just people. So don't detach it and put it away. Bring it in. Bring it in. It's around you. You have it. You perform it. So having difficult conversations has been my career. So I go forward on difficult conversations. Because what I like is not the fact that it's difficult, but that it is a conversation, that you actually want to ask questions. So I want to stop now to give you some time to ask me questions.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that, and I hope we have a lot of good questions for you. If you don't mind raising your hand 3 or 4 times to make sure I see you. If you've got a question, go ahead and fire away. Let me know.
No shy people.
No? All right. They have all the answers already.
Actually, I have a comment. When I got the notice for this meeting, and there was you could hit for STEM toys, toys to bring here and stuff. So I went to the list, and one of them had the 5 top. I don't know if any of you saw it, but it had the 5 best toys for 2019 STEM toys. Some of the descriptions were, in my mind, sexist. One of the toys that I would have wanted said for boys, and one of the toys was for girls that my son, who's all male, liked My Little Pony when he was
Of
little.
course. They're
Okay,
great.
So just because this one, they colored it pink, but it's certainly for whatever gender. So I just had to get that out. Thank you.
I welcome you. When my son was about 3, the Powerpuff Girls were very popular on TV, and he loved Bubbles, so he wanted a shirt for Bubbles. So I said, oh, no problem. That must be everywhere. Let's go to Target. Only the girls section, and it was in purple. And I said, well, and it was a pajama, but he wore it proudly to school, and he still likes purple and pink. I think you're going to find problematic issues like that, but you have to fight them with reality, like buy him the pony. My son loves teddy bears and stuffed animals. My daughter never cared for any of that. Never cared for Barbie dolls or babies or anything like that. She's an athlete, so she wanted balls and things to work out outside, so I let her. And I kept on buying him. For this, a year ago for Valentine, I gave him a teddy bear with a heart, and his girlfriend thought that I bought it for her. And I said, no, I bought it for him, for my son. And she was like, and I'm like, stop with the face. He likes soft stuffed animals. So we need to fight that. When I get really wound up, I write letters. I send emails. I do change with my students. And, sometimes I send them out and they go in with a clipboard and they go to the pink aisle, in the stores with everything is pink. And then they go into the action aisle because, God forbid, we can be action girls, no way. And they do a list of toys. So they do studies like that. So I try with this generation, but across the street they had a gender, what is it, the party that you gender revealed? What is that? That was, yes, I was kind of like, okay. So it's going to have a penis, okay. So anyway, I'm not into that at all, but that is the newest trend. So sometimes when you say, what are they having, you go, the pink, it's a girl, the boy, it's a blue. You decide. You can't really say no. And if it bothers you, don't buy it.
That's some important feedback, and we'll share that with our partner in that project. And I don't want to defend that at all, but there are people that ask for
Yes.
gender-specific toys, so they may be trying to meet a need of a consumer that is not necessarily a young millennial who has the mindset that I think we're shooting for. So thanks for the feedback.
Okay, I have two unrelated questions. Number one, I assume you were very young when you were in Mexico, but what years were you there and what part?
I lived in Mexico City, 65 and 66. I was a small child. And actually my memories, I thought they were from a movie, but they're actually my memories. Because one time I was talking to my mom and I said, you know that movie with the red dog? And she goes, red dog? And I say, yeah, they were like playing and they had overalls made out of suede. And she goes, that's your life. That's not a movie. And I was like, oh wow. So yeah, I was about 2 and 3.
Okay, I often don't go to the movies because our lives do represent them. My other question is, are you often looking for projects for your students to be involved in?
All the time.
I have one for you then that we can speak of afterwards.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Anything in the realm of social justice, I'm interested.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I need some hands after this one.
You said it was your job to have difficult conversations.
Yes.
Tell me the most difficult conversations you ever had.
Okay. This is recent. They wanted me to do a workshop with Latina women in Spanish about talking to their children about sex and about having sex and about their bodies. So I walked into the room and I was sweating a little bit because the audience was going to, reject me. They were going to say, well, how dare you? This is a private matter. This is a family matter. How dare you tell me how to raise my child? Or why do I have to talk about sex that's going to make them have sex? So it was difficult. It was very difficult because I could see their faces and their faces were hard. And there were questions in their faces. Like, and I said, well, I'm just going to share a story with them. And I said, I share this story with my children. When my child was 7, as a boy, I never had boys in my life. I always had women. So I didn't even know what to do. When they told me it was a boy, when he came out, I said, like, can I touch his thing? I don't know. I don't have any brothers. My father died when I was very young. I don't know. And the pediatrician said, just love him. So when he was 7, I realized that I was an early developer. I was 10 when I developed as a woman. So I said, what if he develops early? I need to talk to him. So I said, John, if you see a weird hair down there, would you come? He said, weird how? He said, well, Mom, you would know. Just come and say something to Mom. So when he did, I knew that he had 1.5 years of puberty and that everything was going to change, that his hormones were going to be giving him messages. So I decided at 7 to talk to him about before it actually happened. But talking about biology and the body that he was given and how it works. Not necessarily that you are going to have sex with it, but eventually you will. So that was a very difficult conversation that I had to do with those mothers. And they embrace it because, first of all, I think people know when you're being honest with them and when you are talking about something that you have gone through. So there's no denying that my story was mine, correct? So then they know that I was also vulnerable, that I didn't know all the answers, that I was hoping, right? So I talked to each of them separately 3 times. And then now they say, Mom, don't start with the workshop, okay? And I would have conversations even with children in the back from like baseball games and whatever, and they would ask something and I would answer them. And I said, if you have any problem, tell your mom to call me. But if you have a child that has a question and you know the answer, I will give it to them. Because they ask each other, they have no idea. When I was little, I thought if you kiss with a tongue, you get pregnant. It's a very strange tongue. So that was hard. But they wanted to do it again this year, and I'm like, But you know how stereotypes work, right? In the front row, I had this very young woman, so I thought she came with her mother. Guess what? She was the mother. And we're talking, I would say 13 at the most.
Oh my goodness.
But here I am thinking, looking around and thinking, nobody kind of looks like her. Where's her mom? And she's sitting like alone. She was the mother. But see, as an old person, I thought that she was a child.
Where did you teach that
What?
class? You're talking about.
Oh, this was in the conference Women to Women. Each year they set the topics that they want. And one year they said to us, we want to bring our husbands. And I went like,
Whoa.
well, because the first year we had policemen on the door because we didn't know how some of the husbands will respond because it's Saturday and they're away from their home. And we allow them to bring their children so we take care for them so that they can come. But we don't know what kind of situation they have at home. So when they said that when we want to bring our men, I was like, but I said, it's not about me, right? It's about them. So I asked them, why you want to bring them in? So guess why? Anybody? Come on. Why do you think the woman wanted to bring their husbands to
Prevent jealousy.
No.
Education.
They wanted to help them learn about something. Anybody?
What's their like? Menstrual cycle?
You're hot.
Yeah.
You are hot. The man, and it made me think, this is so true. In our society, we don't teach our boys about the bodies of women and how they change. We don't teach them how it is to miscarry or to be pregnant or to have menopause. We don't teach them any of this. We only talk to the women because it's their bodies. And they wanted to know how to help their wives because many of them, like I told you, have reproductive problems or have miscarried in a row. And all they do is cry, and every time they get their period, they cry again. Or they have menopause and they have no drive now, but they love them, and they want to have sex with them. But nobody talks to them, so that's why, thank you. That's why we did it, and they love it. And we talk about female condoms and all kinds of things with them. And also STDs and obviously HIV. But I was taught that day that you really can't decide what other people need. You have to let them speak up. And they did.
Yeah, I was with the Farm Workers Association 2 weeks ago in Tallahassee.
Oh, wonderful.
And,
For the heat,
yes.
Bill?
right, with Representative Carlos Guillermo-Smith.
Love him.
And they told me about you and that you would not be here again during their conference. And this is, it seemed like a big issue that it's odd. I didn't know particularly you were speaking. I didn't know the two were connected.
Yeah.
So how are you going to ensure, I know it's a flight, but how are you going to make sure this conference still happens and what support would you need?
We, we work now through our classes. So our support base are our students. So we are teaching Woman, Race, and Struggle, somebody else is in my program. So they're going to have the students help with the tote bags and getting those donated. And I can Skype meetings or just surprise them. Not sure. But, I told them they want to do something but smaller scale because I usually go, boom. This year was the 10th. So we did theme baskets and they went crazy. We had like 16 theme baskets for those women to win. And they were like, you would not believe it. They have never seen a theme basket or it's just, the courtesy of others for their enjoyment. It meant so much to them. And to us, it's just very minimum, really. So, I broke the news. I said, I cannot be here physically, but I can facilitate otherwise. I hope they do something, that they don't skip it.
What kind of support do you need from the ground that can help you create this experience?
Well, the tote bags is hard because, each bag has about $30 worth of products. And we don't want to buy in the dollar store because that's what they buy.
Uh-huh.
We want to pamper them and buy them a lotion that is not going to be watered down. So I go through distributors, I go, the students buy, their parents buy, the adults at UCF buy, the adults give money because there's no budget for this. So I fundraise for them, I find them food. So usually we do lunch, snack, and a hot meal at the end. But the kids, which we have sometimes 69 kids under the age of 12. The UCF volunteers and the Rawlings volunteers help with the kids, but they also need food and drink depending on the day, sometimes very, very hot. So they go through water cases. So yeah, we accept donations of water, we accept donations of funds, we accept, if you want to sponsor all the pizza that day, yeah. All those are very real, from like $5 to, we find the volunteers because the volunteers work for the different counties. So they do that and they know us, so they love us. And they come depending on who they want. Sometimes they want lawyers for migration, and we bring people that work in law. Sometimes they like to learn about herbs and healing. So we bring people to talk about that from the holistic school. Or self-defense. I also did a session for them on anti-bullying in the schools because the children come home crying because they're calling them Mexican names and all kinds of stuff, and the parents don't know what is bullying. The way they were saying it to me was not even something that I could recognize as bullying, and I said, can you write it down for me because I don't know what you're saying. And it was bullying, that they hear bully, bully, bully. But when they use it in Spanish, it's a little different. So it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, even if you have tote bags that are not plastic, because we are really very much into recycling. So anything that is material like fabric. The first year we made the women make their own tote bags. I see now the wrong of that. Right?
I just have a quick question. If you wouldn't mind to share your insights and comments on the relationship between gender and religion specifically, and and how that interaction is related to the progress or perhaps lack of progress or the status quo right here and now.
Well, that's a different separate workshop, but I'll do a quickie version. Religious institutions, to me, are oppressive to women. To me, they don't have a space for me, ever. Not even in a picture. The other day, my friend was painting, the Jesus picture with the white outfit, and he put like a boob out, like she was breastfeeding, and it was a woman's face. And I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, a place that doesn't allow me to pray, to help others. I mean, I think I would have been a great priest. I truly believe so. Even my children say, Mom, now that we're older, why don't you become a nun? And I'm going like, are you listening to yourself? I don't think so. But when I was little, I mean, I liked the fact that people help one another. And that's the good part of religion. At least that's the only part that I think is good. But the oppression, it's horrible. It's horrible. Even the stories, how women had to behave. And if you didn't do it that way, your life might be in danger. So it wasn't inclusive at all. I mean, in the Catholic faith, you couldn't even be in the altar when you were menstruating, because you were impure. So I grew up and I couldn't be an altar girl. I thought it was cool, with the incense. It was only for boys. When I heard why, I was like, but that impurity helps us humans to reproduce. Hello, welcome impurity. So no, it's very, very difficult. I follow a woman who is a Buddhist monk, and few of them are women in Thailand. And she's phenomenal when she talks. She's a college professor that had a husband and children and decided later in life to become a Buddhist monk. And all the things that she had to go through just to make it there. It's exhausting when you think about it. It's really exhausting. So I find it very oppressive. I'm sorry.
All right, we'll take one more question and then we'll stop there.
Well, I agree with you on that. I'm 80 years old.
You look good.
Thank you. And I remember when I was a boy, the attitude toward sexuality was totally repressive. You know, your
Amen.
grandmother opens the bathroom door and says, "I know what you're doing," and you know, and that type of thing. And I mean, it was just really bad. But on the other hand, not too many years later, it was a common thing in high school, for the boys at least, to go swimming in swimming class nude. And to take showers in the gang shower, where everybody showers together, and nobody thought anything of it. Nowadays, they either take single showers, or they don't take showers at all. They go through the rest of the day in sweaty clothes, you know. So it's like regression. Do you have any historical perspective on that, why that should be? We kind of started to improve, and then we got worse again in some ways.
Well, when I was young, the girls and I would walk around hugging and holding hands, and there was never any kind of malice to the same sex kind of love
Yeah.
for their friends. And it was never kind of like intuitive, like, ooh, they might be lesbians.
Yeah, well,
Ooh.
they didn't interpret it that way.
No, but I think you were right about the kids don't even take in a shower.
Yeah.
Because right now, their bodies, bodies are very personal, and bodies are a representation of gender in some ways, not necessarily the gender identity that they want. So you have to be very careful nowadays on showing your body or being naked, because it is, at the ultimate, there's nothing else. That's the end of it, right? You're naked. I think abuse, for example, has also entered our lives, which is terrible to think about. And in a way, schools are not preparing for a lot of the images or messages that the children are receiving, because some people might consider them still children. But they might be of a certain age, but they're not children.
Yeah.
I think right now, kids are about 5 years older than their number is. So if they're 15, they're really 20.
Yeah.
So we treat them like they're 12 and they're 15. So our message to them, it never gets anywhere because they're 20.
Yeah.
And we can't think of them as 20.
Yeah.
But the world is so fast to them, the knowledge is so quick, and the things that they have been exposed to. I was really a dumb child, if you think about it, at age 10. I was into my books and reading, but I didn't know a lot of the notion that a 10-year-old will have now. That makes them hard adults,
Yeah, everything moves so fast today, and that includes the emotional and intellectual closeness to adulthood. Yeah.
but they still need the love from the 13-year-old. It's the hard thing that they're giving. When we start working with teenagers, we have to retrain ourselves because they have this faith, but they're listening. But it's the same phase no matter what. So the first times I was like, oh my God, my audience is not alive. They're alive and they're listening. It's just that this is not happening. Then when I study other cultures, then you realize, oh, it's true. They're going this, but they're telling you like, I hate you. So I learned to look, not to expect by the face, because that's not going to give you the whole idea.
Thank you.
Oh!